It's been since yesterday. I hate it. Well, I found out that their warehouse is in Carroll Stream, and it's like that's a Chicago suburb, my friend. I could be up there. I could just let me just take it home. I'll make the drive. I don't need it to be like, oh, it made it to Peoria, and then the next day it's in Indianapolis, and now it's in East Peoria. Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah. You have no. You have no idea. I think we are. Yeah. They beat us. How? Oh, gotcha. I know you. Yeah. What's that drill tweet where it's like he's issuing a retraction for a previous tweet. He's like I wanted to apologize for my previous tweet about ISIS. You do not in fact gotta hand it to them. Of fucking course you can't, because all life is pain. Oh my god, I never have these problems doing Gap. Like, do you know that I stream for Gap, right? And it's fine. It works. But the problems when you and I stream, it's always still on my end. So it's not even like I can wash my hands of it.
Yeah, I left a stain that doesn't clear. It's fine.
Yeah,
I do that sometimes.
They should be able to hear you now.
I hope so. I'm making stains everywhere. We're gonna see if chat can hear us before I go forward, since we're doing the whole factory showroom thing.
Yeah.
How are you doing out there, folks? Hope you're having a good evening.
Can y'all hear June now?
Well, we're gonna see if chat hears me or not.
I mean, your little line is wiggling when you talk, so.
If it's wiggling, I'm giggling. I don't know what that means. I'm not hearing any feedback or anything from them.
Yeah. So maybe now they just can't hear me either.
Okay, nope, they're good. They can hear me. They can
There
hear
it is.
me now. I think we're good to go.
Oh, y'all like to keep us in suspense. I admire it personally.
Miranoth is basically a co-producer at this point.
Yeah, we'll put you in the liner notes.
That's right. Honestly, I think they might work harder than we do.
Sounds slightly off.
Uh-oh. I will dinker on this. Is a new microphone, so. Um. So yeah, folks. Hi, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good evening. We got a request on our YouTube page to go through our retro setups. Which I'm pretty sure, like, I saw lights flash behind Mike's eyes when that happened. You know, it's what do they call it? Kaioken from Dragon Ball. You're not Super Saiyan, but you're like getting there.
The thing I love about retro setups is that it's possible to just keep adding. And you always come up with another thing you want to add on there. Another system or another screen, another room, another family, another life altogether.
Are these connected, or are you just going off?
We're all connected when you think about it.
Fucking A. That's a great reason to leave your family. Okay. So I was thinking we go chronologically, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like, I didn't know how else to organize things. But you have a bunch of retro systems I don't, because I have a Mister. So I'll just grab the Mister right quick. If you
you
haven't seen
you
the,
say that like having a bunch of retro systems and the Mister are mutually exclusive.
I mean, they are for me, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, my camera's frozen. But keep talking. It's fine. They don't need to see me.
Okay, they're fixing. He's fixing the camera, folks. The concept. We're working on it. It's a project. If you
Yeah.
haven't seen the Mister FPGA is a tiny little computer, and it is supremely excellent at emulation. So this little box can run basically anything from Atari to PS1 with a bunch of old computer operating systems in there as well. So this would replace, in my case, an NES, a Super Nintendo, a TurboGrafx, a Genesis, a PS1. It has a bunch of arcade games, Game Boy. I'm trying to think of what else, but I mean, this FPGA's got literally everything. The emulation is damn near perfect, and what I like is it has a lot of settings for accessories. So, like Mike was showing me earlier, his plans for what they call their snack adapters, which are adapters for this little device that allow you to use original controllers through this FPGA. Mike, you have a Mister setup too, yeah?
Yeah, this is actually this is an NES ROM hack of Super Mario Brothers Special running on the NES core on the Mister.
Hell yeah.
So I've got one of those snack adapters set up. I actually played through it using my Mister with an original controller. The nice thing about those snack adapters, because you might think, well, I can just use a USB controller or something over Bluetooth. These are actually these are allowing you to use like kind of the GPIO pins on the Mister to go directly into the core. You're not going through like because the Mister like has like a an ARM processor that runs Linux. You're not going through like the USB layer and then through Linux things that are going to add latency. You're just going directly to the thing you want to control. And it's a little bit
I don't know if
quicker.
it's exactly zero lag, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's nothing's going to be exactly zero lag, and I mean, not even original hardware is going to be exactly zero lag. So, it usually amounts to like much less than a frame, less than half a frame, something you're never going to notice.
Absolutely. And if you are, trying to go, in my case, my Mister is almost entirely wireless. I have these cheap little 8BitDo dongles. They're like 15, $20. These are good for PS4 controllers, PS3 controllers, Switch controllers, like almost any PC controller. And the Mister takes them perfectly fine. So in my case, I just plug these into my Mister. I can sync a PS4 controller to it or a Saturn controller to it, and I'm off and running. Another cool thing about the controller setup on the Mister is that it accepts unusual controllers, so light guns and mice and fight sticks and basically any sort of weird use case you may have. Dance Dance Revolution maps. Um, you can run through the Mister and it's going to be cycle accurate, which you really can't say for even a lot of PC emulation. Like accessories are absolutely difficult sometimes for emulation, and everything on the Mister just works.
Yeah,
Plus, it's a community-led project, which I think is cool.
yeah, yeah. No, it's great.
Another great thing about the Mister, since we're probably going to be talking about cabling and all that fun stuff tonight, it's got an HDMI output for your like modern televisions, but you can also buy these component cables, which allow you to run it to older televisions. Quetzalcoatl, I'm going to stop. Light guns with non-CRT TVs. I Short answer, yes, but it's complicated. So a lot of the default light guns are only going to work on older TVs like CRTs. But if you have some sort of Pi setup and one of the newer Sinden light guns, I believe you can feed that through the Pi in order for the Mister to pick up the signal. I don't know what the performance on those Sinden guns are, but I haven't heard anything too bad about them. I don't know about you.
No, I heard that they actually work really well. Because of science that I don't understand, they don't work on old light guns from like PlayStation or like your NES Zapper or your Super Scope or whatever. Don't work on like LCDs or modern displays in general. These so usually what you'd have to do is you'd have to do what the Wiimote does, which is like two LEDs and a sensor bar, and your controller is tracking the position of those LEDs to try and get an idea of where you're aiming. But even then, because it's not 100% accurate, you have to have a crosshair on the screen. So any like light gun game you play on the Wii is going to have that crosshair. What the Sin and light gun does is it puts a border around the outside of the screen, and it's tracking that. I mean, you have this white box around your screen, which isn't ideal, but it tracks the position and shape of that box to determine where you're looking at it. So you get a much like wider angle, but also you don't have to have that crosshair. You can just aim and shoot, and it works like it would have on a CRT. That's really nice. It doesn't work with Mister yet, and I hesitate to even say yet because they've said it requires a couple of changes on the light gun side, but they've been saying that for a really long time.
I found a couple projects that allow you to feed the Sinden signal through a Pi, which then interpolates it to the Mister, but it requires you to have a custom Pi set up just for this use case. And
right.
I think it's one of the more expensive ones. So
and I don't think there's a huge I don't think there's a huge library of light gun games that you can. I mean, well now actually it's with PlayStation Core with the snack adapter for PlayStation coming out. There's a lot more, but for a long time there wasn't really a lot of light gun games you could really play in the Mister. You had Zapper and Super Nintendo, but
they had some arcade light gun games in there, but it's none of the ones that most people are going to be totally into since they're older.
Yeah.
Mister's arcade emulation kind of cuts off at the 90s, so I think the most new games you get are like Cave games and then the Marvel vs. Capcom games, which are still great. No complaints there. Don't get me wrong.
You mentioned earlier I switched it over that it's got the Mister's got analog and HDMI out. The arcade cabinet's pulling HDMI, and then I'm pulling component off it at the same time to split out to the CRT as well.
You have to buy a special analog specific cable for that, which is like a component or a SCART with a VGA style connector at the end. And if you already have a Mister, one upgrade I found that I highly recommend, grabbing one of these cheap digital to analog converters off of eBay. I believe there's a link on the Mister add-ons page. This allows the digital audio output that comes out from the Mister to be split into an analog stereo signal. And I found that it's a pretty big upgrade over the Mister's default audio.
Ooh, I haven't done that. I'll have to do that.
If you like having the chunkiest, ugliest possible bass, just like the most digital fart noise when you're playing your Genesis games, it's highly recommended.
Oh, that's good. So I'm just splitting the headphone jack to speakers here and then to like an RCA adapter to my TV.
This headphone jack's interesting. It's got analog stereo out that would just normally fit in there, and then it's also got mini optical through the same port. So it just kind of depends on what you're outputting. You can change that in the settings.
Yeah.
But digital out split to analog with a really nice stack sounds very rich, and it sounds really great through like a halfway decent stereo system.
Ooh, I might have to try
yeah. Handhelds, I guess. I don't have a Game Boy. Do you have an original Game Boy?
Yes, somewhere around here.
Okay. I'm trying to think of which retro systems I know you have around the house. You've got an NES there, right?
Yep.
What's going on with your NES? Do you have any mods or?
No, actually, the NES is the one thing that I've had no interest in modding. Mostly because I mean, like the Mister NES core is just really good. So I haven't really felt the need, but also like I started in like my first console was a Super Nintendo. Like I started on NES, but only when my sister's boyfriend would bring his over. I actually I don't know why I just thought of this, but like when he used to bring games over, one time he's like, yeah, I got another game, Donkey Kong, and I thought he was lying because it sounded like a stupid name for a video game. I was like, I don't think you really have a game called Donkey Kong.
Boy, I don't think you really know the real Donkey Kong.
Boy, was my face red. But yeah, no, I don't really. I've got multiple NESs, but mostly any of the work I've done with them has just been getting them back into working order.
And do you have an EverDrive for them?
I don't.
Okay, so you're running a very basic setup then.
Yeah, well, the only reason I wanted an EverDrive was so that I could play light gun games, and now that I can do that with the snack adapter on Mister, I don't need it.
Yeah, considering the snack adapters are like $15 or something like that.
That
it's much of a
reasoning
fraction.
that reasoning will not carry over into any other consoles we talk about. When I'm like, oh, Mister handles it, that's why I don't have it for NES. But then that logic stops there.
You sound like slightly upset that you're like, I have a healthy relationship with the NES and maybe not the other one.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one. You said the SNES was your first system.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your SNES system? I do not have an NES or an SNES around the house, personally.
Oh, I think I got it real close.
Uh-oh. Here he is.
Oh my god. I definitely wanted to show this one on camera because it's like the cleanest SNES I think I've ever seen in person.
It doesn't look deep fried.
Oh my god, no! It's both sides of this system are the same color.
Ooh, look at that.
There's like one little blemish like right here, but other than that, it's pretty good. But you may notice on the front of it, I've got a wireless controller. This is one of the 8BitDo controllers, and they sell these little Bluetooth adapters for those controllers. I think they have 2.4 gigahertz controllers as well. But it's really nice. Their Super Nintendo controllers, in particular, I think do an excellent job of matching the feel. It's never going to feel exactly the same as your Super Nintendo controllers because like those have been around forever. The pads are going to be in various states of wear or whatever, but they're really nice. And then
you can also get that controller for PC. Like that controller works on the PC and can sync to a PC. So if it's something you're interested in, you can take that thing to a bunch of different consoles even.
Yep. Yeah, you can use this on Switch. All over the place. And then inside the cartridge, FX Pack Pro. I don't have any good focus on this camera, so but it's flash cart, SD card slot in the top. The thing that separates this from like Super EverDrive is support for special chips. So like Super FX, which would be like what would run like Star Fox or Yoshi's Island to a lesser degree. A bunch of those games that required special chips. This actually emulates them, whereas like Super EverDrive does. I think the Super EverDrive, the new ones will run Mario Kart now.
Yes, I think they've got up to 100% compatibility at this point in time. Although I'm not. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
You got folks in the chat saying that like. I'll read it off to you. Quetzalcoatl says, I love that the color fading on the SNES is the common reference point and that we are enraptured to look over. I got legitimately excited to see the SNES so clean. And Chris Reese Art says, same, I got chills. And like, having worked in a retro game store for 4 or 5 years, a decent looking SNES is a lot harder to find than I think people expect. If you go into your attic or whatever and dig your SNES out, it will probably look like you smoked cigarettes directly into it for like 5 hours straight. It will be yellow as heck.
Anecdotally, and I'm sure that this probably exists somewhere adjacent to the truth. I've heard that the plastics for the top and bottom shells were not always manufactured in the same place, and the processes were different, which is why you'll see Super Nintendo's where the top just looks pristine and the bottom is super yellow, or vice versa, or sometimes like this section in the middle will be all yellow but everything else will be fine, just because of how those plastics degraded or reacted with the air over time. It's not necessarily like this Super Nintendo, the bottom half of the Super Nintendo came from a smoker.
I think it's something where if you really would like a clean SNES, you can probably go for the SNES Junior, which does kind of output better audio and video in the first place. But they're much harder to find. You can honestly
piecemeal them too, because like you can get a couple of gross ones, put the nice parts together, then have one like really gross Super Nintendo and one really nice one.
Miranoth says, we had a wood-burning stove in the living room when I was growing up. My old SNES looks so terrible.
You can take comfort in knowing that probably wasn't entirely your fault.
That's true.
Maybe a little bit, but...
But also, if I were on eBay and I saw a console that said seasoned with mesquite, I'd probably buy it. Like, That's a nice vibe to have in your living room.
I
Just
was
a
at, I did a Maker's Mark tour recently, and they talk about how like they put the different like stave combinations into it. Like, what combination of like Super Nintendo and Genesis and stuff do you have to put in the bourbon barrel to get that to really get that 16-bit flavor?
that rules. Do you have anything special going on inside the SNES? Is there
It's
like any mods?
uh no, because the Super Nintendo outputs RGB natively. So if you get the right cable, which I have HD Retrovision cables, they're kind of like my go-to for. There they are.
Hey, look at that,
Yeah,
folks.
they're my go-to for high quality cables. Just a lot, mostly because of availability and reputation. Um, they've been excellent every cable that I've picked up. I will say that there's variants of the Super Nintendo. The one that outputs the cleanest video are like they're so-called like one chip Super Nintendos, which I forget the exact. It has to do with different components being consolidated into a single chip. I mean, it's not a super complicated explanation, but mine is not one of those. So it does output a little fuzzier of a capture, but if I'm outputting to a CRT or something, you'd never notice.
And if you wanted to fix that, there are some pretty simple mods to do to get like clean RGB off the chip. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay.
I think the improvement for me just wouldn't really be worth the time.
Yeah, exactly. SNES games also look really good in Mister. So let's just like put that another point on the board. Even Yoshi's Island, even the stuff that's kind of harder to emulate, runs perfectly.
Yeah.
So
That's going to be a recurring theme. I think there's not really a good reason be earlier than a certain point. I don't think there's really a good reason to go deep into like retro console modding for like the 16-bit stuff or 8-bit or even getting into 32-bit a little bit.
yeah, I would
Now
agree.
that the Mister exists, you really have to have a certain type of brainworm.
Speaking of brainworms, do you want to introduce the Genesis? Do you got one of those laying
I
around?
do got one of those laying around.
I myself actually have my wife's Genesis that she had growing up in a box in our bedroom somewhere. But I think we're just going to keep that in storage and keep it pristine since the Mister runs the Genesis so dang well. But there are some simple mods I could do to it if I wanted to just get it clean signals, clean audio and video. But the Genesis is just like the SNES in that it can output RGB with the HD Retrovision cables. There are easy ways to get decent audio out of it, so you don't have to bend over backwards to make your Genesis work. What you got there, Mike?
I've got my Sega. So I've actually gone through a few different solutions for Genesis. Um, I had a Model 2 Genesis for a while that I got bundled in with a Sega CD that I picked up, and then that Sega CD didn't work. And then I got a an analog Mega SG, which is kind of, you picture like what the Mister does, except it's just for that one console. The
Yep.
benefit of that is that it's got the controller ports built in, and it has a cartridge slot. Um, I still think those analog consoles are really good for what they do, and they scratch a different kind of itch, and that you can get more of that like single console appeal. I definitely think though that the Misters eating their lunch like pretty hard.
I would agree. I would totally agree. I mean, those analog consoles do have your HDMI out. They work really well on modern TVs, which is
Hmm.
another huge plus. You'll notice that a lot of these older systems, you kind of got to fiddle with them to make them work on a TV or have a pass through or an upscaler or something to really get the signal you're wanting. But I think honestly, with the Genesis, there's so many different variations between console models and sounds and video and everything. It's kind of hard to replace an original console
Yeah.
unless you're just playing on something like the Mister. I mean, a good example would be when you and I were talking about Genesis for the first time. We were just talking about how bad the music was versus how good the music was, and it kind of just
Hmm.
came down to different chipsets and different audio chips and different versions of the Genesis, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, and that was
Uh,
one of the things that the Mega SG did really well, is it had like You just had a menu option. You could choose like which revision of the Genesis you wanted it to sound like, and it for the most part it did a really good job.
The Mister does that as well, so that's
Yeah,
another nice feature for that.
yeah.
The other plus, like you mentioned, the Sega CD, I think is one of the most underrated consoles of all time. There's so many good games on that system, but they are very expensive and hard to repair. So that would be another thing where I would actually advocate for people to check out the Sega CD's library, but you can do that on the Mister.
Um, this was that was actually the reason initially before there was a Sega CD core for Mister. That was the reason that I picked up this version. There's different versions of the of EverDrive specifically for Genesis, the Mega EverDrive Pro, and then also another. There's a couple other carts out there that'll do it as well. Will play Sega CD games without the need for the hardware, which is great
amazing.
because my Sega CD doesn't work. And I'm not going to go back to burning optical discs. You cannot make me.
And most Sega CDs don't work at this point in time, unfortunately.
Right.
Those lenses are really nasty and hard to repair. Like there's a finite number of drives out there, and we will run out of them at one point in time. Even if they are getting harvested from Walkmans and stereos and stuff.
Let me actually beat the Mr. Dead Horse though for a second. Camera should be coming back. Here it comes. Mr. Setup, what was your complete Mr. Setup? I bought mine off of like a back alley forums like in 2018. So
oh my god.
Yeah, no, I had to buy my like RAM, the D10 Nano, like everything from a different source. I had to just find guys that are like, "Yeah, I'll sell you that." But what was your complete kit like last year sometime?
My complete kit here, I have a D10 Nano for the FPGA board. I have an I/O board on the top for your analog output and snack stuff, and then the USB hub on the bottom. You can get all of those at Mr. Add-ons, or I think there's a UK shop as well. But the D10 Nano is really all you need to get going.
Mm-hmm.
And you can run with just that perfectly fine. I would recommend the RAM upgrade for both PS1
You're
and
really going to limit yourself if you don't get the RAM upgrade for sure.
Absolutely, but that's like $60 or something.
So what was that? What did you say your setup was total?
Total, I think I paid $300 or $320, but it's definitely gone up since then because of the FPG chip shortage.
This cartridge for just Genesis was $200. Get a Mister.
That's too much money. Yeah. We got a question about Mister in the chat. Do either of you know much about the dev community around the Mister? I did a lot of work with FPGAs when I was in school, but I haven't had an excuse to mess around with them since, so it might be fun to poke around. The dev community is bopping.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah, there's a really active Discord. There's some kind of really like I'd say like prolific Mister devs out there now that are just like Hotego's be one of those.
Hotego.
Null Objects doing the cave course.
Yes. Furtech is working on Neo Geo and and other arcade boards. Yeah. We actually reached out to them in the hopes that we could talk to them, but we never got a hold of them. And then I would also what's the other one there? Robert Azum, who does the PS1 core. It's been really fun to watch him develop the PS1 core because I've been a Patreon subscriber, and he does like weekly testing and emulation notes. Mm-hmm. So, watching a core, like the super cycle accurate emulation core come together in the process of 4 months and kind of getting a weekly update on it is an experience I don't think you're going to get a lot in video games. It's people telling you and taking that input directly. And I know that this one guy's project it works very similar for Hotego and Null Object and all of the other Mister developers. I think that there are still cores in development that people are excited for. There's a Saturn core that should be coming soon. And I think you know how I feel about my Neo Geo Pocket Color, and that's supposed to be coming soon as well. So I think it's definitely going up.
Worth mentioning, I think I'm gonna look this up just to make sure I get the handle right.
I'm going to drop the name of these creators in here because instead of it being a YouTube channel, you're mostly going to follow on like Twitter and Patreon. So Robert Azum.
There's one that I definitely want to mention, SRG320 _. And I can we'll put the name of that in chat. But
Yep.
he's working on a Sega Saturn core, and then also just released a 32X core, like stealth dropped. He's in a pretty hot area of Ukraine right now.
Yeah, you talked to him a little bit, right?
I've not talked to him. I've talked
Okay.
to a couple other people that have worked on other projects, but yeah, I mean it's a little weird to be, you don't want to be excited about a product coming out of a war zone,
No, no.
yeah, it's I'm not sure the right way to put it, where it's like obviously their safety is paramount, and the fact that they're that devoted to the Mr. project, and I'm sure it's partially a sanity thing, for them as well, to have something to work on. But I mean, it's wild to see what's been coming up with both those cores.
Really a global community, which is incredible. That like someone so far away is we have connection points to them and can see into their lives. Because I mean, these developer logs still include what's going on in their lives and what's happening with them. So
Right, absolutely.
it's that's a really cool example of video games actually kind of, I don't know, helping us understand each other a little better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to understand why someone would make a 32X core in the middle of a war zone, but that's because I haven't had to live in one of those.
Exactly.
So I just very much appreciate that the folks are still out there and doing it, because it moves them.
Yeah. More happy that he's able to make it than that it's being made.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. Should we move on? Do you have a turbo laying around?
I don't have a turbo.
Okay, which means you also don't have a turbo
been
CD.
hassling Michael, Thrifty Nerd Tomorrow, because I know Michael has a TurboGrafx somewhere, and I've been told by his wife that if they find it, I can have it, but I don't currently have one. But Mister does it great, so I don't really need one.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one of the most slept on consoles of all time, is that Turbo CD.
Yeah.
Just insane, beautiful music. It's like an NES with a billion extra features in it. It's very, very nice. But the Mister emulation is perfect and actually looks a little better than the basic outputs.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you've never played around with a TurboGrafx, Turbo Duo, Turbo CD, Super Graphics, again, you can jump in on that Mister. But there are great emulators for that on PC as well. So I don't have a turbo here around the house either. Again, anything I can play with a Mister, I usually don't buy. But to me, it's a good enough emulation solution for damn near anything.
Right.
Let's try to cover what else you might have that the Mister could cover. Do you still have your original Game Boys laying around?
Yes, but I'm not sure where they are currently.
So what do you have for those?
So I have an original DMG that I've done a backlit screen replacement on, which those I think I usually get those on like handheldlegend.com, or there's another one that's escaping me now, but there's a few locations that'll sell all the parts for that kind of stuff. I have a Game Boy Color that's also modded in the same way with a really nice backlit screen. Neither one of those get any use now that the Analog Pocket is out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you know where that is?
I do know where that is. I know exactly where that is. It's pretty much always on my person.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, because that's got a I've got a GBA EverDrive in there. I was thinking that this is a little in the weeds, but it's super weird, so I want to talk about it. But I was thinking that I wasn't going to need a regular Game Boy EverDrive, because the aspect ratio matches the original Game Boy on there. But then if you play Game Boy Advance is like kind of widescreen, so you have black bars on the top and the bottom, which is totally reasonable. I get that. But then if I play a Game Boy game on the GBA EverDrive, the Analog Pocket recognizes it as a GBA game. And if you've played an original Game Boy game on a GBA, you know that it puts black bars on the left and right. So now now they're compounding. I've got the black bars on the top and I've got them on the side, so it looks like everything's just kind of displayed in a little window in the middle.
A little postage stamp.
So I just bought another EverDrive.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
You gotta put in spirit somehow.
But I mean, even that's like not really necessary because people have found ways to get ROMs, get Game Boy and Game Boy Color ROMs working on directly through through the Analog Pocket without the need for an EverDrive.
Oh, that's kind of nice then, isn't it? I mean, because the Analog Pocket, if you're unaware, folks, covers like, I don't know what, Game Boy, Game Gear, Game Boy Advance.
Theoretically, it's like right now it might as well just be Game Boy Color, and GBA. It's supposed to also cover Game Gear. Links, like a couple other things, but those require adapters that I don't think they've released yet.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's got like a backlit screen and modern batteries and wireless and all this fun stuff.
It's got like a ridiculously high resolution screen. Let's see.
Yes.
I don't remember what that resolution is now. 1600 by 1440.
1440p handheld.
Yeah. So, and you might be like, that's dumb as shit. But then you look at the original Game Boy, and it's got a very specific look to it that has to do with like, you know, the pixel density and how it kind of has like the sub-pixel lines that you can see in between. It actually emulates all that stuff, and what you end up getting is through this one really high resolution display, they can recreate very specific displays from different iterations of a handheld. So I can switch between like the original like Taco GBA to like an SP to an SP 101, and it looks fairly faithful to what those handhelds would look like in person.
The lime green slime color even looks pretty halfway decent, yeah. Mm-hmm. Which to me is necessary. I don't like it black and white. I like it with that weird green tint to it. It wouldn't feel like Game Boy.
I got a bit of a Game Boy Pocket nostalgia though. That you know, so I kind of like that like grayish color scheme.
I can respect that. I had a Play It Loud clear Game Boy growing up, so I just spent a lot of time playing Kirby's Black Ball mostly.
Oh hell yeah.
Hell yeah. So I think that's everything in that kind of generation. Do you have a Game Gear or a Lynx or a Turbo Express?
I have a Game Gear that I failed to do a recap on properly, so it doesn't power on. That was the first time I'd ever tried to recap anything. I have since done another Game Gear, and did one of the like McWill backlit screen modifications for it, which looked really nice. I think I took like I sold that on eBay, and when I did it, I took like glamour shot level like photos of this thing for eBay. They're like way overproduced. I'll have to tweet them out later. But yeah, I think I put like my whiskey decanter to like the one side of it, and I had like a nice little plant, and like it was lit real well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was really cool. But it's just at the end of the day, there wasn't much that I really wanted to play on it.
Also, I'm sorry if this upsets anyone, but the Game Gear feels awful in hand. It's very heavy.
Yeah,
Very impossible.
Like trash, actually.
What's that?
It feels like trash, actually.
All right, so I'm gonna grab, I guess question in the chat. Do you have anything that can emulate the Virtual Boy? I think only right now you can get that on PC and Android emulation.
Mm-hmm.
But the Mendefen RetroArch Virtual Boy Core is excellent.
Which means it's time to buy a Virtual Boy.
I don't. Well, wait, no, you can get TV Out mod for it.
Yeah.
And Wario Land is really good.
What do you need a TV Out mod for if you can just get the head strap?
The world's best Oculus.
Yeah.
That controller, by the way, feels great in hand, even though it's like the most cursed design-wise I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
it does seem like a nightmare.
Virtual Boy Defense Squad right here. There are like 5 good games on that system, and for
But
a
aren't there
system
only
with
like 8
games,
games on the
that's like,
system?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's a good hit rate.
That is,
Like,
yeah, that is a good ratio.
you got Bound High, Innsmouth no Yukata, Jack Brothers, Red Alert. The Wario game is probably the best Wario game, I think.
What's the homebrew scene for that? Is there?
There's cool stuff on the homebrew scene. There is a port of Super Street Fighter 2 with multiplayer, even though the Virtual Boy never had a link cable. There's stuff in the code for it, so you can buy homemade link cables for Virtual Boys just to play this homebrew Street Fighter
Oh God,
port.
we'll talk about homemade link cables later.
Yeah, it's about to get real weird in here. I guess I'll grab my first piece of console hardware here other than the Mister. In 1994, Sega released the Saturn. This is my white Model 2 Saturn from Japan. It's got a Fenrir ODE in it, an Action Replay up here, as well as some of these wireless dongles. These go to the, what are these, Retrobit Saturn controllers, and these things are magical.
Yeah.
It's like absolutely zero delay Bluetooth. And between the Fenrir, which is an ODE that basically allows you to run games off of a SD card, and the Action Replay up here, you don't have to worry about a lot of the common headaches of the Saturn, which is a bad CD drive, and the save games dying over time. This is my favorite Saturn revision, even though there's a bunch of them, because there are not a lot of white consoles, and this pink button is gorgeous. Do you have a Saturn kicking around at home?
I do. Yeah, I bought a Japanese Saturn because I thought that the cartridge slot on mine had died, but actually it was just I had that Action Replay cart. It looks like the exact same one you have, but the cart itself failed. Because I tried it in the other system, and unless I got another system with a bad cartridge port, I don't know. And it didn't work there either. So I have not been able to play my Symphony of the Night with the enhanced frame rate.
Oh, it's really pretty.
Yeah. It's nice.
One nice thing about the Saturn is that it does output high resolution natively with the right cable. So all you have to do to get really high quality HD, I wouldn't say HD, but close to HD video out of that thing is a SCART cable or a component cable. And fed through my RetroTink, it looks incredible. The Saturn is by far one of my favorite consoles. I've put a lot of laps in on that thing, and 2D games just simply hit different on that thing. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a weird thing with my Saturn where it would not output component, but it outputs SCART just fine.
Okay then.
So apparently it all goes down to like it has to do with like there's like a little like resistor that I usually have to replace. That is usually the problem. I ordered that thing, and my wife threw away the bag that it came in because she thought it was empty, and I can't blame her because the thing was tiny. And so at that point I was like, you know what, I'll just use SCART. It's fine. I don't want to replace something that small.
I got like a $30 SCART cable, and it's beautiful. No interference, perfectly clear.
Did you get the Insurrection Industries one?
I do have the Insurrection Industries one. The only upgrade I might look to in the future is a FRAM chip replacement.
Yes.
As well as you can get a digital audio converter on that bad boy, which will really kick up the CD audio another level. The Saturn CD drive is kind of notoriously bad for music, and especially compared to the PS1. So any upgrade in audio is absolutely worth it when, I don't know, you're playing Panzer Dragoon or Burning Rangers or Knights or whatever.
Yeah, the FRAM chip is for the Saturn has some built-in memory for saves, but that's backed up by a battery. That battery has to remain good, but as soon as that battery dies, anything that was on that chip is gone. So usually you have to use like some sort of a save backup cartridge or something. This would just replace that chip, that volatile memory chip. Yeah, they like the Action Replay right there.
Yep.
The FRAM, you're just replacing that volatile memory chip with something that's non-volatile, like this FRAM chip, and so then it no longer requires power to maintain the saves. Which is
almost every single one of those
great.
chips is going to go bad eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just a known issue with the Saturn. So any sort of ability to hop on top of it is worth it, especially when the FRAM chips themselves are like $20 to $30.
That's
It's
definitely
not
a
that.
really involved upgrade, though. No, I would say
Yeah.
not for beginners.
Any sort of soldering that you're doing in your console, if you're not experienced and you don't have like a tester broken console or something to work with first, don't touch your own shit. It is so easy to break and destroy a board or a chip accidentally, and in some cases the whole thing's trapped.
But if you do want to get into that shit, just keep old electronics you were going to throw away, and just practice pulling stuff off, soldering stuff on. Get yourself in like a zero risk environment.
You can get yourself a safe and functional solder setup for $50 real easy. It may not be the best for highly technical work, but in terms of teaching yourself the basics, it's the sort of stuff where you're going to want some practice first.
Now, if you like to live life on the edge, you can get a dangerous one for $5.
I like to buy the cheapest soldering gun I can find, and then roll the dice a little bit.
I have a pretty nice soldering iron, and I still unplug it every time I'm done using it. No, I'm not. It always comes out.
I've got like literal burns on my fingers from where I hit myself with a soldering gun. It's no good.
Oh my god, Carrie used to work. My wife used to work in an OR, and she got a hold of like some like operating like prescription strength like burn cream. We had a little tube of that for the longest time, and if I burned myself with the soldering iron, put a little bit of that cream on it, never knew I was burned. Next, like a couple hours later, I felt fine. It's amazing.
Yeah. Go tell your doctor you have severe burns and ask for it.
Yeah.
Just be safe. I mean, you want to be safe, right? It's like you'd keep a kit for bee stings, wouldn't you?
Yeah, what's the worst he can say? No? Get out?
I guess the next system chronologically would be the PS1, but I have a PS3 that I use for that, or at least I did until the PS1 Mr. Core came out. The reason why I bring it up is because Mike has a fancy schmancy PS1.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll get that. I'll put my Genesis back so I don't just have a pile of consoles at the end of the night.
Mirnoth says, for desoldering, something with actual temperature control is very useful and can help immensely with melting the solder without delaminating the pad. Also, for anything with more than 2 pins, a hot air pen is massively useful. Listen to what Mirnoth is saying. This is great advice, especially if you have a little experience with solder, but you're hesitant to get into a bigger project. There are tools to make this stuff easier. In fact, I tried soldering without flux for a long time, and watching it being done with flux and trying it, it's a totally different world.
Yeah. So yeah, PS1 looks normal. What's going on in there? That's not a CD-ROM drive. There's the minus the theatrics. This has got a an X station installed, which is I did not do this install myself because I tried. I bought a couple of which it was a cheap experiment. I bought a couple of PS1 just the motherboards by themselves. No, actually, they were the full console. They were in shelves and everything. It was $35 for the pair, and I tried it on one. I failed miserably because you got to do some kind of intricate pin lift garbage, and then send it off to somebody who did a great job fixing it up. But this allows me to just throw an SD card in there, and it boots up to an interface where I pick a game, and I'm off to the races.
You know, I watched Tito at Macho Nacho Productions on YouTube do a X Station install, and it gave me the same vibe as waiting to get my teeth drilled at the dentist. Mm-hmm. It was so fucking stressful, dude. Like, I can't imagine doing anything with that level of intricate work.
It sucks. And I don't recommend it for anybody. The other cool thing that's going on in here is this little guy. It's called MemCard Pro, made by a company called 8-Bit Mods. It's a memory card, but it has an SD card slot. The nice thing about this thing is that it talks to the X Station and gets the game ID for any game that you load up, and will create a separate memory card for each individual game. So you never have to worry about how much space you've got on a memory card or whatever. It only sucks for one reason, and that's the Psycho Mantis fight in Metal Gear Solid, because he always thinks you just don't play any games because it's created a brand new memory card just for Metal Gear Solid. There's nothing else on it.
Yeah, if you're into getting like slightly domed by a video game for playing Suikoden, you may be out of luck.
Does he mention Suikoden?
Yes, he does.
Oh
I think he mentions any sort of Konami game like Suikoden or Silent Hill.
That's probably the only reason that people know how Suikoden is pronounced.
So when I worked at GameStop back at the day, we had an ongoing joke because we had someone, and this is in rural Michigan, come up and ask for a copy of Swacky Tacky 3. And they meant Suikoden. So it was Swacky Tacky until the end of time for me.
That makes me want to make a platformer called Swacky Tacky.
Yeah, it does sound like an Amiga game now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Which is awful. Now, do you have anything going on in the back of that bad boy?
Nope.
Like, do you have any output mods? What would you do for video there?
Everything that I do for video, I mean, anything that I would do for video now would just be the RetroTink 5X. It's an upscaler. Okay. You just do component, like you can do component into it, you can do SCART into it, composite, S-Video, and it's going to do a beautiful job. I have a couple of consoles that I have HDMI mods on. Like my N64 has an HDMI mod on it. But now I have, higher quality. I have an RGB mod on it, so I can use component cables. And the RetroTink looks identical, if not better, than the HDMI mod. I don't think there's any reason to do internal HDMI mods anymore now that upscalers like that exist.
So you're just using like a stock component cable for that thing?
Yep.
That makes sense though. It really, really does. For everything, I think, except for the N64, but that's only because of the N64's issues. Which, speaking of, so I've got one of these sitting around the house. Got an N64 here.
Yeah.
And this N64 does have an EverDrive, like a lot of Mike's systems. It's also got one of those RAM expansion packs.
I don't have to use physical media for any of my consoles. I think the 3DO is the only one.
Same here. And that 3DO ODE is coming soon.
Yeah.
You might notice these big goofy things on the front of them here. These are wireless controller connectors. There's some space in here for the memory card. They go to these Retro Fighters Brawler controllers. I don't know how everyone else feels about the N64 controller, but it can go jump off a bridge as far as I'm concerned. This is a much more comfortable controller for me to go with. Although I do have a couple of stock controllers around in case it's an issue. I'm very, very, very lucky. Because this is my wife's N64 from growing up, and I think it only played Star Wars Episode Racer for 10 years. Meaning it's basically immaculate. And this Atomic Purple controller is untouched. There's no residue in the analog well, Mike.
Oh my
God.
There's
zero residue in this controller. And we just talked about it, but this is a HDMI mod for an N64 that I purchased a while back, and eventually Mike will be installing for me. I think he's right in the sense that you can use RGB for your N64, but the N64 has a blur filter that is automatic for every game that it outputs, unless you do some sort of internal modification. So the nice thing about this HDMI mod is it takes care of the deblur and offers a pretty decent HD solution to feed into my tank.
Ooh, question in the chat that actually I have particular feelings about. Jumping ahead in the timeline a bit, but I've been wanting to do an HDMI upgrade to an original Xbox. Is that worthwhile, or should I just go with the upscaler? So that used to be a complicated question because the original Xbox component cables were difficult to get. Now there are cables that I found mine on eBay where people are taking component cables for the 360 and just modding them to have the original Xbox connector on them. And I think I paid like $30 for mine.
Mine were 40.
Yeah, yeah. So really affordable. But then you get good component out, and then you can get. I mean, you can do your like 1080i if you want to on the couple games that support it.
720p looks really good too. But
yeah. I would never go with 1080i if 720p is an option. But it's that's the highest that I think anything on Xbox will support.
That's true.
But
mine,
yeah.
we'll talk about it, but that's perfect for feeding into these upscalers like we're talking about. Component is generally the best thing to feed into it as of right now. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the HDMI mod would be a lot of extra work and a lot of extra money for, I don't think that much of a big difference.
Right.
Also, the HDMI mod for the original Xbox is strange because you have to install a mod chip at the same time. So you have to have both a mod chip and an HDMI chip in order.
And you do cannibalize your, at least with the one that I saw, you cannibalize your analog out.
Oh,
like you
really?
actually have to you actually remove that port and you take over those pins, which I'm not a big fan of adding capabilities in a way that's destructive to the original capabilities of the system. And I've got CRTs and stuff that I like to work with, so I wouldn't want to get rid of analog out anyway.
Also, personal taste, I think analog out generally looks a little better in these upscalers. I've got some like HDMI cables that are fed through a DAC, and generally speaking, the base component output is always going to be a little cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'd say if you have an upscaler, see if you can get one of these component cables because it's $40 versus $200 plus an install.
I do want to bring my my 64 into the mix a little bit because
Let's do it.
So I think I mentioned before it's got an HDMI mod, but it's also got an RGB. Like that HDMI mod also acts as an RGB mod for the analog out, which is nice because then I can do simultaneous kind of like what I'm doing here. It can go to an HDMI display and then also to an analog display, so I can kind of pick and choose where I want to play. I've got the same wireless controller mod, but you'll notice that I only have one of these controllers, and it's not in the first port because I got some other bullshit going on in there.
Oh, that's right.
I've got it's a project called Blue Retro, which uses an off-the-shelf Bluetooth chip with a little bit of custom code to allow you to connect wireless controllers to it, and it supports a ton of controllers. You can use Xbox controllers, place like DualShock, all sorts of stuff. But you can also use the Nintendo Switch Online N64 controller. So I've got an official. And you know what? There's no residue in this well either because I got this a couple months ago and I barely played it. Yeah, I mean, you can use an official Nintendo wireless controller on 64. It cannibalizes this front port, which I don't really like. You literally just solder into these pins on the controller port. So
it's a little grim.
Yeah, but it's reversible. So at some point, somebody's going to release a dongle that just includes the Blue Retro in it, and I'll just get one of those.
That makes sense.
Until then, but also another thing that I've got on here. This is kind of minor, but these Retro Fighters dongles, they sit off of the surface where your console sits. And so, if you put a controller pack in there, add a little bit of weight, or maybe if you're an idiot like me, you put a rumble pack in there so that your console it can put a little stress on the controller port. So just have this little 3D printed bracket that just relieves that stress.
You can get those at retrofrog.com.
Mm-hmm.
They're excellent and cheap, and they've got a bunch of cool stuff over here, like this stand for my RetroTink, for instance. Just to follow up on Miranoth, yeah, I think if you have component cables, the cost of the mods that you're looking at are going to be almost the same price as an upscaler, and the strength of an upscaler is that you can feed anything into it. So I definitely recommend getting a RetroTink 5X if you were looking at doing those kind of video upgrades. Or you could wait for the Pixel FX Morph, which will be coming, I think, sometime this year, and offers, I think, pretty identical features. But some people have preferences from where they get their stuff from. Mike.
Oh, I know it's coming up, so I'm just
Okay, you're prepping. You're prepping. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the greatest console generation. It's a generation of one, as a matter of fact. This is the Hello Kitty Dreamcast. My pride and joy. This thing has a bajillion pieces of work in it from Mike, which I appreciate. These horrible spider cables out front are all wireless controller modifications. They fit perfectly with these 8-bit dongles. They also allow me to sync these interesting Saturn controllers to the Dreamcast for fighting games. So these Saturn controllers are not stock. These are modified controllers with a Bluetooth board inside of them. And since a lot of the modern wireless devices don't play well with Dreamcasts, this is one of the ways that I found to get reliable, like 6-button inputs for a fighting game. This console in specific has a 4 mods. It's got a one of the ODEs in here. This is a GDEMU clone, which I got off of Amazon. It's also got a controller port modification for the BIOS. It's got a replacement power supply and HDMI out as well. You can look at the back of the system. It's got some wacky ports compared to your normal Dreamcast. We've got our little mini HDMI down here, as well as, where's that? This really strange port for power, which allows you to connect a laptop board and take all of the heat that would be in the Dreamcast and put it somewhere else.
And that's actually really nice for the Dreamcast too, because part of the way that case is designed is that it kind of relies on having the CD drive in there to guide air to the correct places in the case. And without that there, it kind of swirls around, doesn't know what to do. So having that the thing that generates the most heat being the power supply outside of the case, you just increase the lifespan of your console a little.
If you're unaware, the HDMI mod allows for 1200p HD signals through this Dreamcast. Yeah. Dreamcast is interesting because it has a bunch of components that weren't really utilized: high definition video, high definition audio that can be pulled directly off the chip. So I think while Mike was saying earlier that like HDMI mods for consoles are kind of a miss if you have an upscaler, I sure do love my Dreamcast.
Dreamcast is actually a weird case though, because there is no good high quality component solution that I'm aware of. Dreamcast natively it's kind of a weirdo because it supports VGA out. So like if I actually have a lot of good memories playing Third Strike on a PC CRT because of that. But without a good component input, there's no. I shouldn't say there's no, but like there's no upscaler that I'm aware of that's going to accept that VGA signal. No. So that's probably the one exception where I'd be like, yeah, just you throw an HDMI mod in there. But that being said, there is, I believe HD Retrovision is coming out with a component cable in the near future, whatever that means in the retro game scene.
Yes, and if you're wondering, I do still feed this through my RetroTink for upscaling purposes. I just use what they call a digital to analog converter. I feed the HDMI signal into one side, it outputs an analog component on the other, and I get to use all the features of the tank, like the scan lines and the blending for content. It looks even better than the base HDMI. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it is absurd how good 3D games look on the Dreamcast when you've got it all modded up. Mike's got a similar setup, but I think you've got a mode in yours?
I have a mode in mine. And so that just allows me to use a 2.5 SSD. And it's also got an SD card slot, and then it's got a USB port, but the USB port is positioned in a way that it's inaccessible if you're using an SSD in it. But the SD card slot is really nice for like if I don't want to pull that whole drive and hook it up to like a dock and get and add a game to it, I can just get it off of the SD card. but yeah, we were talking about weird homebrew link cables earlier,
Let's go, baby.
and I don't even know if they're still if these are still being made, but there was a small run of link cables for Dreamcast that work with like it's a serial connection that works with like 5 games, I think, and like 3 of those are Ferrari racing games.
Hell yeah.
But most importantly, it works with Virtual On, which yeah, June can describe Virtual On way better than I can, I'm sure.
Virtual On is a wonderful third-person based fighting game made by Sega. It's kind of an arena fighter, kind of a fighting game. It looks like every vision of the future that I ever had in 1999. And it is a very hard to find game, hard to play game in multiplayer. It doesn't have split screen versus in any of its iterations. And the ports, such as the 360 version, are out of date and don't have great net play. So Mike, I think, specifically bought this link cable to play Virtual On. And on a very rainy and muggy night last summer, we got our true Dreamcast set up, this wonderful, high quality video upgrade, playing with that link cable for the first time. This game I've been playing for 20 years and never had a chance to play multiplayer in. And it's a hell of an experience, I gotta say. That's one of my favorite games. Like top 10, I would say. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so pretty. And that experience is like, there isn't another game like it. I play a lot of fighting
Right.
games, and it's just not. There's no easy analog. Some of them, the Toho games, I guess, are like that, but they're all kind of following in the footsteps.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things where it's like, I like emulation is cool and everything, but because of the small number of games that supported that serial connection, to my knowledge, it hasn't really been implemented into emulators.
No.
They focused on the net play side of it, so people can play their PSOs. But if you want to play Virtual On, you gotta have 2 Dreamcasts with this weird special link cable.
Yep.
And
Or 2 hacked 360s in a LAN configuration, which
right.
is just as obnoxious to put together as anything else,
Mm-hmm.
frankly. I think next release I don't have a PS2, but that would be the next system chronologically. I will soon, crossing fingers. That's the last part of the collection I'm still working on. I think Mike said he has one sitting around I can steal. Otherwise, I'll be buying a Sakura Pink fat PS2 on eBay very soon here.
Oh my god, do that. I've got a black one that's kind of scuffed up. You can have it, but like that sounds way better. I'm infinitely jealous of the Hello Kitty Dreamcast.
Oh my god, that's like the most perverted thing I've ever done for myself. Was just
You
buy
got like
that
a
system.
good deal on it too, though, didn't you? Like, I mean,
180.
yeah. I mean, which you might be like, yeah, Dreamcast, but it's the Hello Kitty Dreamcast.
It's the Hello Kitty Dreamcast, which I've lusted after since I was like 12.
Yeah.
Like, and also it came with a bunch of mods already done to the controller board, which has some issues with batteries, and that board can die. So it's a beautiful system. It's in great condition, and it has all this extra work on it.
Yep.
I mean, great deal. You can find some crazy stuff on eBay. Now, if I have access to the Hello Kitty controller, I might just that might be the end. Satisfied, go walk into the ocean or something.
Oh yeah, you'll transcend at that point.
Absolutely. I'm ready to meet the angels. But only in the sense that it's the most indulgent thing I can imagine. It's buying yourself a Hello Kitty Dreamcast is too luxurious.
I know. I got the JZ DJ Hero controller, so
we both have rare DJ Hero controllers.
Really?
You want to get there? Let's get there.
Oh my god.
Anybody who doesn't know, this is not chronological. This did not come out on PS2 as far as I know. DJ Hero, part of the rhythm game genre, this very unique. I think it's like the best rhythm game released in that generation. But there are a couple of rare variants on the DJ Hero controller. Mike, why don't you show us what that bad boy can do?
This is the Renegade DJ Hero controller. It's got I don't know like the deal with this one beyond the fact that it says Jay-Z on it, which is
Yes.
why I snatched it up instantly.
That's why you got it?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So then you can absolutely tell me why it's called the Renegade Edition, right?
I think it's probably because of the TikTok dance.
Renegade is a song by Jay-Z featuring Eminem, which is featured in DJ Hero. I love hip-hop, y'all, so this is just beautiful for me. So this is an interesting DJ Hero controller. You might notice Mike's is wireless, and all of the stock systems that were shipped were wireless. But prior to the release of the game, select GameStop managers were given wired DJ Hero controllers for the 360. And my manager said, I know that you love this game more than you love your family and parents, so please take this home before I destroy it. And ever
Hell
since,
yeah.
I've got this extremely beautiful wired controller that I don't believe ever made it to the market.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I love that game so much.
You know
That game
what-
is so good.
You know what really pisses me off about it is that I bought two because it'd been a long time. Like I'd only ever played it in the store, and so I bought two controllers because I was like, well, I know that it's got a connector. You like the controller. The main part of the controller is the centerpiece, and it's got a connector on either side. And I was like, I was assuming there was going to be like a two table mode for one player,
Yes.
and there's not.
No.
And I think that was a huge bummer. But the rest of it is great.
Yes, I agree. Also, Versus DJ Hero is excellent. And it features the greatest song of all time, Ain't No Love in the Heart of the City. Highly recommend it.
It's so
But-
satisfying. They got like a good inertia on that wheel.
Mhm.
You spin that.
And you could put some stress on that thing too. If you're really scratching and you got your palm down hard,
yeah.
it can handle some tension. It's nice. I think the next thing chronologically would be the Xbox. We've talked about this a little bit, I think. Oh my god, this thing! Oh, it's hard to hold
Yeah, I'll
a
let
single
you get
hand.
out yours.
There you go. So mine is a launch model. I got this on a birthday, I think, when I was young. And the only modification I have to it is an upgraded hard drive. It's got a standard IDE with, I think, a 200 gig hard drive and a modified firmware so you can play ISOs off of it. Frankly, if you have optical media and you're still running that optical media, there's a lot of wear on these systems, just even as time passes. So if you can segue away from that, you might be doing your console good in the long term.
Absolutely.
I also have those modified component cables like we talked about. But that's about it for my Xbox in terms of the console itself. How about you?
Mine is the same. Yours is your mod is a soft mod, correct? Software.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. So mine actually required soldering. It's got an Open Xenium chip in it.
Ooh.
And I screwed up a couple Xboxes before I got one of those working right. But it's basically just there's a debug port on there, and you can just solder in a little pin header into that port, put this chip on top of it, and use that to load custom firmware. And so mine also has an upgraded hard drive in it as well. I think I've got a 2 terabyte hard drive in mine. But I mean, I just like to overkill because I don't want to have to be like, oh, I have to remove a game so that I can put this other thing on there.
Overkill. You need that space for all the Maddens.
Yeah. There's so many. You don't realize how many Maddens there are.
I want to say it's like 02. No, because I think 02 is PS2 exclusive. 03 to 2011 or something like that all came out on the Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
Something ridiculous. For my Xbox controllers, this is where the fun stuff starts. I've got a couple of the.
Are you trying to not get sued by Hayden Christensen?
Wait, what? Wait, am I getting? What did I do to Hayden Christensen?
He's got that the famous line from the prequels. This is where the fun begins.
Oh God!
You're like, here's like just rights, like the royalty-free version of that phrase.
Yeah, I don't want to I respect the prequels and only the prequels.
Yeah.
So no, I did not mean to besmirch Hayden Christensen. For most of my controller solutions on this original Xbox, I use one of these Brook USB connectors. This allows you to connect PS4 controllers, 360 controllers, Wii controllers, Switch controllers, etc. You can plug this into the system through the use of a simple Xbox to USB converter that you can buy on Amazon for like $4. So I have two of these dongles, which do a great job of giving me like wireless. But then, we also got to break this guy out. This is a Steel Battalion controller. So we're going to be holding it up in various parts here because it's a multi-part operation. We've got over here is the controls and the throttle. We've got our panel of buttons here. We've got our other set of controls, along with the best video game accessory of all time, the escape button. And if you're unaware, they come with these legally registered weapons that are actually foot pedals. These are like solid steel. Every single one of these of the thing, like, there's no plastic in that. All four parts of that are connected together to create the controller for a single game. I guess two, technically speaking, because there's an expansion. But essentially, the premise of the game is it's a mech game where you use all of these controls. I think there's something like 40 buttons or something. This is kind of like the big novelty for the console, I would argue. A lot of people it's been what's lionized since. But the unfortunate thing about that is Steel Battalion is a wonderful video game. And it's the inaccessibility of the controller really does it a disservice, I think.
Well, I mean, if you missed out on the controller, there's a sequel for Kinect.
I have not played it, but I've heard it's less than good.
Yeah, no, it's not very good. I am so jealous of that Steel Battalion controller. If June ever goes missing, just check and see if that's been stolen, and you'll know what happened.
I'm thinking maybe I should bring it to GeeklyCon or something, just so I don't get murdered.
Well,
just allow you access to it, and then just hopefully it goes well.
Yeah, my wife suggested that we may end up driving. So I may have to bring some stinky stuff with me as well.
Some stinky stuff.
Yeah.
Wait, are you taking your wife and kids?
They're going to. She's got a friend that lives out in that area who's got got kids. So they're going to probably spend the time there.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Well, that'll be fun then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of showing them off while we're talking about it. You can do some fun things with this controller. There are modern solutions to get this working on a PC, and as you can imagine, there's a whole lot of fun to be had there, as Xbox emulation does work properly, but it can also be mapped to a standard like X input controller, meaning you could use it for Steam games. I've seen people using it for that.
I imagine there's PC games that can fully utilize all those buttons.
Absolutely. What's the big space one that everyone plays these days? It's like an MMO or something.
Galaga.
I don't remember what it is, but someone has it working in one of those space combat games.
Elite Dangerous.
Yes, Elite Dangerous.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've got it working in Elite Dangerous as a fully functional controller. Just to upset the chat, I got this controller with game for $60 when I worked at GameStop. They were going to throw it out. This is during a very confusing time in retail where there were so many accessories made, if they didn't sell, GameStop would just throw them in the trash. So I ended up getting this clearanced out at the end of the Xbox's life cycle. Apparently it had been sitting back there in a manager's hold pile for 2 years.
I also got so many things the exact same way, but that doesn't stop me from being angry that you got
I used to have a pristine box too, but unfortunately that was lost in a small flood.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty awesome. That's one of the things I get to wag around when people come over and have fun with. So, shall we move on? You've got your GameCube ready.
I do have my GameCube ready. My GameCube is a complicated machine. At this point,
it's got feelings. It's got issues.
At one point, this thing had 3 separate SD cards in it.
Yo.
So it of course has the a missing optical drive. So it's got it's called a GC loader. This one, this one was purchased from Black Dog Tech. Dan Kuntz, who's the original developer of the GC loader. You can find these things on eBay or on AliExpress and stuff. Those are generally knockoffs, which you'll have varying degrees of success. Unlicensed knockoffs, Dan was definitely not paid for his work. And you'll be missing out on like firmware upgrades and things like that. But yeah, this is this just allows me to load the homebrew launcher that everybody uses for GameCube would be Swiss. It allows me to load Swiss, see all my games with like logos and everything in there. Choose it and launch it. And they actually just updated both Swiss and the GC Loader firmware. Now you can write. It used to be there weren't any write operations to be able to like write things back to the SD card. Now you can, which means if you have custom settings for games and things, it can just save that to this. Where
that's nice.
You used to have there's a serial port that was unused for any retail accessories that you'd have to put in as like SD to SP2 or I always screw that name up. But it was this little device with an SD card that would go in there and you would write to that. I never got that to work because that port is just kind of finicky. And those adapters didn't really fit in there quite right. Some people would like add solder to theirs to get a tighter fit. It was always kind of janky. So I just resigned myself to just doing my own settings every time I launched a game. But I don't have to do that anymore because we got this.
Hell yeah.
It's also got the Game Boy player on the bottom, which will play Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games.
And that's not just any Game Boy player. That's the Spice Orange Game Boy player.
Spice Orange, absolutely.
Ooh.
The
Japanese exclusive.
If you are running a solution where you can launch homebrew stuff like Swiss, you can actually get these a little bit less now, but like you can actually get these for like a decent price. Because most of them are missing. At retail, they needed a disc to launch the Game Boy player, and most people who've got these things, that disc is missing. So you can just get one without a disc and then load an ISO. And there's actually even improved versions of the Game Boy interface disc that
upgraded emulation and features.
Right, upgraded emulation, upgraded features, better scaling. They just look a little nicer. You can absolutely see a difference. And then the other thing that I've added to this thing that I have not yet had a chance to use, I just got a hold of a broadband adapter.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that's set up for playing Phantasy Star Online. What the funny thing about it is that I probably will rarely use this now because it's the broadband emulation on the Wii U is so nice now and pretty turnkey. But it honestly, I think this is one of those white whale things. This and the Dreamcast broadband adapter, it's something that like I wanted for so many years. There's only a few games that even support it. I know Mario Kart Double Dash is one you can play up to 8 players over LAN. That's not a good reason for me to buy one because Mario Kart Double Dash is my least favorite Mario Kart.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I honestly, I know people love it and I just don't get it. But it's not that I don't like Mario Kart. I'm a huge Mario Kart fan, but it's just not that one. And then, you have Phantasy Star Online. There was a Japanese exclusive MMO that I don't know if there's private servers for it.
I don't think there is.
Yeah.
It was not up and running for that long.
Right.
I just flat out don't have a GameCube because I like the Wii U. But I think Mike's got about like the flyest GameCube I can imagine over there.
So yeah, I mentioned the third SD card was the SD card that was in my EverDrive for Game Boy. That is in that cartridge slot.
Do you have Blue Retro running in that too?
I did for a while. I had it soldered in and then I desoldered it because Retro Fighters actually has a couple has a a GameCube wireless controller coming out. That's the problem is for wireless controllers on the GameCube there are not many good options. There's
Yes.
the Wavebird, but you're going to be spending $80 minimum for one of those right now.
Hmm.
And the and there's like knockoff wireless controllers that have just a ton of latency. This They're not great. But Retro Fighters is coming out with and the Wavebird doesn't have Rumble. Retro Fighters is coming out with a controller. It's been pushed back quite a bit, but I think they're finally in production. I might finally see that thing by July.
Hey.
It was supposed to be in January, so that's how long it's been bumped around.
Hey.
But I mean, honestly, like if you're gonna, this is a tangent of a tangent. But if you're gonna buy like these small run like retro gaming products, or like you're really into like modding and stuff, be prepared to wait for the opportunity to buy something, and then for it to take months, if not, even sometimes years in rare cases, for you to finally get the thing that you ordered. Especially
It's
now with
true.
component shortages.
And I hope that will get better over the coming like year or so, because apparently the chip production will be taking off by then. But like, there's no easy way around that. I personally like. There's one of the reasons I don't have a GameCube, even though the Game Boy Advance player is really nice, is just getting the setup going is pretty expensive these days.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna check out chat right quick just to check in. Miranoth played 700 CAD for the Steel Battalion controller in 2 games. Seems there was a sequel on Xbox. Yeah, there was an expansion on Xbox that included multiplayer, which is going on there. They Miranoth also managed to pick up a GameCube broadband adapter for free. So Mike, you're not alone. You and
Nice.
Miranoth and maybe 7 other people have a GameCube broadband adapter. There weren't a lot made, folks.
um,
Uh,
one of the things that that's going to mention with that component shortage, like we mentioned that like the RetroTink 5X, that thing, I have never seen that out of stock, and that's notable just because like these things usually it's a creator who doesn't have the capital to get to do a large production run up front. So maybe it's a situation where there's a ton of demand, but there's even if components are available, like it's a lot of money to put up front for supply that may or may not sell. You don't know until it happens.
I think that when I bought mine, which is a little after yours, like I think maybe a year or so,
Mm-hmm.
I had to wait for it to come out. Like I waited for 2 or 3 months for them to go on sale. But ever since me purchasing, I've never seen it go out of stock.
Right.
So they must have had just consistent enough demand. And frankly, I get it because the Tink rocks. It's wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth noting this is the 5X was pretty deep in their line of RetroTink products. So they definitely had an idea of like how much their things were going to sell at that point, and they were running the marketing circuit pretty heavily leading up to it.
That's true.
But
That's true.
yeah, it's honestly wild how they've been able to keep up with demand on that thing.
Especially considering the chip shortage is basically eating everyone alive right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he's increased the price by $20 in 2 years. That's not that bad, honestly, considering other things going up by 50, 80, whatever.
Yep.
I think the next step would be what, PSP and DS? I think would be. Trying to do the
Sure.
math here. Yeah. So I don't have either, but I do have this little guy. This is the PlayStation TV. I don't know why I said it like that, TV. This is a PlayStation TV. It's sitting in one of these brackets that I got from Rose Colored Gaming to stand it vertically. This takes care of my PSP and PS Vita stuff. This will do an HDMI output onto a television and allow you to play those games with a PS4 controller. It's got some soft mods and an upgraded memory stick, but really it's just stock, and anybody could do that with a PS TV. Mike very graciously gave this to me, and it is one of my favorite things in the collection because I think the PSP library is wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. There's really good PSP stuff. There's really good Vita stuff as well. I mean,
Yes.
Vita, I think kind of became an indie game machine, and then also like if you like visual novels and JRPGs, like there's a ridiculous amount of content on that thing.
Worth it.
But yeah, no,
Absolutely.
I bought those things like I got those like PSTVs for like $20 a piece, I think. Like, yeah, they were because they got clearanced out, and then people were like, "Oh, wait, these are good actually."
They're excellent.
Probably once the soft mods, like once they stopped updating the firmware on them and the soft mods became stable, is probably when those prices went up.
Absolutely.
But like you can do, there's a sharp scale mod you can put on that thing so that it'll scale things up really nicely.
960p,
yeah,
which is ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, both the Vita was like before the Switch. The Vita was my go-to handheld. Like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got one of the stock Vita models here. This is the one with the OLED screen.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, ever since getting the PS TV, this thing has gotten 0 time.
Right.
This is my Dissidia machine. It's also should be mentioned that the PS1 emulator on this thing is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some good My Life in Gaming videos about different ways to play PS1 games, and they talk a lot about like how the Vita and PSTV run compared to like PS3 or like PlayStation Classic or even the original stock system.
Oh yeah, and okay, what do we have here? I'm not surprised that there's an emulator for both PSP and Vita, given how little support Sony gave them after they launched. The thing about the PSP and Vita is that they've always been very easy to give custom homebrew to, and so it's very easy to load them up with ISOs and other programs. This thing is basically the way to watch it on television. It's got like an HDMI out and everything. But like the official Vita emulator, as far as I know, there is no good Vita emulation on PC. I believe the PSP emulation is pretty damn good at this point in time for PSSPP.
I mean, you can run that on Android and get really good performance for 99% of the library.
You can play every Ys game if you want to. You just go nuts. But I honestly like this allows you to play Vita games with 4 players connected to the same system. There's just features on it that I can't help but recommend enough. I do not have a stock DS on me. I instead have these 2 3DSs that I run with. This is the Galaxy new 3DS. This is the original launch model. There's not much to talk about them other than this thing is kind of nice with it. It's metal. Yeah.
Yeah. I want both of the. I have a Majora's Mask new 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a 2DS XL. Which is just the 3DS without the 3D with like the 3D stripped out. Which towards the end of its life, most games, even like official Nintendo ones, didn't even include 3D.
Yes.
They really kind of like just kicked that to the curb. Which I thought was a shame because once they switched to the new 3DS, like that 3D effect was excellent.
I agree. Like I still turned it off for a lot of games, but I kept it on for some, which I think is a W.
Yeah, I think Mario 3D Land like always looked amazing with it.
Yes,
that's like my second favorite Mario game. So
that's like one of the best Mario games. You are absolutely not wrong.
Extremely good. It's like if Mario 3D World didn't have Cat Mario. I'm sorry, I cannot handle that motherfucker saying meow at the end of every level. Get the fuck out of here.
I've got no comment. No comment on Cat Mario.
But both
I want Cat Boys to thrive.
That's fair. Both the 3DS and the Vita have pretty like if you can just read instructions, you can get those things modded.
Absolutely.
And install a ton of stuff. I have like a BTS theme on mine with like pretty much every like any game worth playing because I got like a 512 gigabyte SD card put in it. It literally like there's a load time on my menu like where things just pop in row by row.
That's a lot of shit.
Yeah,
but I mean that makes sense because you can play the 3DS as well as the DS. Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, like any sort of handheld emulation you can do on the 3DS pretty damn well.
Right.
And I'm not ashamed to say I bought a Circle Pad Pro just so Mike and I can eventually play that awful fucking Metroid game together.
Yes.
Which I did play solo, and it's not great.
Did you see that tweet we got from like this? It was like some like Discord group or like somebody who like plays Federation Force. They're like, "Did you ever find a group? Do you need somebody?"
I didn't know how to respond. I was like, "Well, I guess I didn't, but I'm not I'm not feeling it like that." Like,
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. I mean, respect for all you thirsty Federation Forcers out there. It's got to be hard out there.
Yeah.
It's a tough breed.
I don't think we need to Federation Force the issue.
It's it's like trying to find 4 people for a death row game. I respect the pain, you know. Let's move on to the consoles. Oh, next generation. These things are heavy. But I have 2 Xbox 360s here. One with the wooden faceplate.
Oh, not for
one
long.
with the graphite faceplate. And Mike has my new upgrades, baby! That fucking thing.
This is an Undertaker faceplate and skin. You can wrap that whole thing. Let's get it. You know what? I'll adjust my focus. Which way do I gotta go? There we go.
Oh man.
Come on.
There it is. Yeah, look at him. He's not even sweating through that tank top. He's so cool.
Oh my God.
That's one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. But I can't help but be just completely enthralled by it. Completely enthralled. Where did you find that?
I found it at a game shop when I was out recording the Roll for Streetwise album. There's a game shop down the block, and I had it, and they had it, and I knew in that moment
that you'd be able to bully me into putting on my Xbox.
This may not have been worth adjusting my focus.
I disagree.
Oh my God.
You look great.
I'm so blurry. Are you kidding me?
You're in VHS mode.
I look like I don't exist, like a hoax.
Sasquatch Bachman?
Yeah.
So this graphite one is just a stock 360. Bought this at launch. Does what 360s do. It's got a bunch of Xbox Live Arcade games on it. Whatever. It's mostly here so that I can play System Link with this 360, which has a RGH mod. The RGH mod is it's not exactly a mod chip, but it kind of functions like one. It allows you to run custom firmware, install Xbox Live Arcade games, play Xbox games that aren't traditionally supported by backwards compatibility, blah, 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 blah. You can fill this thing with your standard 360 ISOs, but it's the only modification done to this thing other than an upgraded hard drive. That said, Aurora Menu for the 360 is wonderful. So if you do have a 360 and you can actually find someone still doing these installs, because it has become very hard to do, I would recommend it. I think I paid $100 for.
I would, if you don't have a 360, like I honestly, even if you do have a 360, like I would recommend just buying one that's pre-modded. Like I found a place that was selling them. I paid $200 for mine. And as somebody who had 2 additional 360s that I tried to do the mod myself on a few weeks ago and bricked both of them.
Shit.
Yeah, it was not easy. So I just find somebody who's selling them already, and you know, you don't have to worry about like, oh, I sent mine in and oh, mine's not the right model for this, like, et cetera, et cetera. There's too many complications there.
Absolutely. And especially because like the chipsets weren't always readily available over the last decade or so. They're becoming in and out of availability. So if it's something that you might have an itch for, I'd recommend jumping, because there's no guarantee it'll be here next year, especially with this chip shortage. I don't think there's anything else remarkable about the 360s here, is there? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. Well, the other thing to mention with Aurora is that it's compatible with something called Xbox Link, which allows you to do System Link over the internet.
Oh yeah.
So
I forgot about that.
It won't let you pick up. It won't let you play like Xbox Live games that have been taken down. If those games have a System Link component, you can play those over the internet. So I played a decent amount of Crackdown, the first Crackdown with a buddy not too long ago.
Oh yes, we'll have to do that to play Gears of War or something sometime.
Mm-hmm.
That's my like I've put so many hours in Gears of War 2 Horde mode. I think it's probably a big chunk of my life at this point in time. I should mention, I guess, out of a fit of spite, that I did have a pre-order exclusive Death Smiles Xbox faceplate that I once lost and got destroyed on accident. So pouring one out, showing respect, RIP. I've tried to buy a replacement since, and that shit costs more than the actual game itself, so no thank you. It will be replaced with The Undertaker.
As it should be.
Yes, as it should be. All's right in the world. PS3s, let's talk PS3s. They're kind of a hot item right now because they are being emulated to a higher degree of quality than I think anyone has really expected. The last couple of years have been really good for PS3 emulation. That said, I don't.
Foundry that just did a video where they ran Metal Gear Solid 4 4K 60 FPS. It was like they had like a ridiculously powerful machine. It was like, a 3090 and like they went above and beyond, but it's not that far off really.
No, it's really not. That said, PS3s are still pretty cheap, I think, for the most part, and especially for the slim models and the super slim models are really great if you're going to be using the disk drive. I would not recommend a super slim like this if you're looking to do any custom firmware. They're kind of a pain in the ass to get up and running. This is my basically stock model PS3. I also purchased this firmware modded Gran Turismo edition slim PS3.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's very, very handsome. It also came with a similarly colored controller. This has a PS3 Hen mod in it, which is a soft mod. It allows you to run PS3, PS1, PS2 games off of the hard drive running ISOs. At this point in time, it's only PS3 and PS2. Once I get that PS2 console, I'm going to knock that off as well. So this will be PS3 exclusive.
We should actually back up and talk about PS2 because I think we kind of skipped over it.
I think we kind of did, yeah. We talked about it a little bit, but you have something up and running, right?
Yeah. So this is actually the extent of my PS2 mod. It's got oh, what's the name of the hack again? Oh god, I keep thinking Memcard Pro, but that's the name of the other thing. Yeah, free McBoot. So it's free memory card boot. A buddy of mine. It's kind of the gray goo of PS2 mods because a buddy of mine got it from somebody who got it from somebody who got it from somebody, and it's just kind of like he just cloned his memory card over to mine, and then I had you can literally just put it into your PS2. And it'll boot into a custom firmware. What's nice about it then is that you can then load. It'll enable you to play burned games if you're still burning discs for some reason. But also you can connect a hard drive if you got a fat PS2 and the hard drive adapter to do that. But what's even better than that is if you can set up a network share and then point your PS2 at that, and you just load all your games off the network. Because of some weirdness with the speed of the bus that your hard drive and your disk drive are connected to, loading off the network is actually faster than either of those other methods.
Like you can even have loading times in some cases.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's wild. I've run into exactly one game that I had trouble getting working over the network. That was Gran Turismo 4. So this is in my memory card slot. Gran Turismo 4 is always in my disk drive, and I'm good to go.
Perfect. Yep. I think I will be looking at doing a hard drive mod myself, just for portability's sake. But I've heard such good things about the network, I might just have to try it anyway. Because I think you can do that for like Mister as well, right?
Yeah, that's how I have my Mister stuff too. I've got a NAS that sits in my closet. That's got all my PS2 games on it. It's got all my like everything for my game library for Mister is all loaded onto there, and everything's just loaded over the network.
Makes sense to me. You know what? I did not talk about this, so we'll just grab this here while we're waiting.
Oh yeah.
This is a Neo Geo Pocket Color, which is sort of SNK's competitor to the Game Boy. It is by far my favorite video game system ever. I've taken this thing with me to 1 billion different places all around the country, taken it out of the country. I've gone through 3 of them. And Mike's actually got another one sitting on his desk to put a backlit IPS screen in. But this thing is amazing. First things first, this has a dead battery, I guess, but it has a backlit screen mod that Mike did for me so that it, is very easy to use in the sun. You're not sitting there squinting at it the whole time. But the real thing that I really love with this system is just the form factor. It's got the little clicky stick. Feels great in your hands. Link cables are pretty expensive, but it's something that my wife decided to buy me for a birthday present last year, a link cable and system. So I really love the Neo Pocket Color, and I'm going to evangelize for it anytime I get a chance to.
I got a Wonder Swan color around here somewhere.
You do?
Yeah, but the battery pack is corroded, and it's kind of a weird little thing where there's like a resistor that's inside of the plastic. And I haven't been able to find a replacement for that to test to make sure that this thing actually works.
Sounds awful.
Yeah, no, it sucks. But one of these days I'll get one of those and do something with it. But it was an impulse buy for sure.
I mean, they're a beautiful system. Like, WonderSwan crystals are gorgeous when you see them in person.
Mm-hmm.
I have definitely caught myself drooling a couple of times.
Crystal is like the next step up, right? Like, wasn't the regular Wonder Swan, then like a color, and then Crystal was after that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Crystal's basically upgraded screen fidelity. It's slightly larger. I think the color range is a little better.
Mm-hmm.
But the color and the Crystal are largely the same system when it comes to hardware.
Right.
You're not going to have like Crystal exclusive games or whatever. I guess the Neo Pocket Color also has a black and white version called the Neo Pocket that was out in market for like 2 months. But you just get a color. It's worth it.
Right.
What are we missing from the last generation? We're talking about the Wii. I think everybody has one of these somewhere. I don't even use this thing. It's just sitting around.
My Wii exists for one reason, and that's if I want to transfer something from my Wii U to my GameCube. Because it's like if I like have a save, like so when I get around to using the broadband adapter, if I want to take my save for PSO that's on my Wii U, I'll have to bring it over to take that save file off, put it on the SD card for my Wii, and then use a memory card manager because the Wii still has memory card slots for GameCube. Use a manager to dump that on there. And then I can put it in my GameCube and be good to go. That's literally the only reason I still have that thing.
Well, maybe we should be talking about the Wii U then.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the most slept on consoles of all time, I think.
Uh-huh.
Like, I laughed at you when you told me to buy a Wii U. I just openly laughed at you. I was a fool. I was a damn fool. And I went and got myself one of these. Don't know how this happened. It just happened to be there in the store. A Zelda Wii U. It's got this exclusive gamepad with a writing on it and what I assume is Simlish. This doesn't have any real differences to a standard Wii U, but the Wii U surprisingly is like the best homebrew console I could imagine. It just works. It feels good. I love the way the gamepad feels, but you can use Wiimotes and classic controllers and all that sort of fun stuff. The great thing about the Wii U, it emulates the Wii perfectly into HD. It emulates the GameCube perfectly into HD, and it emulates the DS incredibly well into HD. So I think the only DS game that I had a hard time working, there were 2, Super Princess Peach and The World Ends With You. But otherwise, I've been able to play through multiple DS games on my Wii U. It's got that little touch screen, but it's the size of an actual like screen, so you can see it. I've not been more surprised by a console than this.
Yeah, you can
really love it.
between like the virtual console releases, and then homebrew emulators, and then between its natively supporting Wii and GameCube, like you have probably the widest range of like Nintendo consoles of anything on that in that era.
Hmm.
Like you could try running some of that stuff on like your modded Xbox or PS3. You're gonna have a bad time.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. And I think also the Wii emulation on it is really, really interesting because it is basically just a separate OS, meaning that any mods that you can do on the Wii, you can mostly do on the Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
You can install old WiiWare. You can use the sort of emulation features of the Wii and really, really tweak things down to like the absolute level because Wii Homebrew is incredible. Yeah, I could not recommend this enough. I think these things are probably going to get more expensive over time because of how versatile they are. So
Well,
I'd really recommend anyone can grab one.
we're playing like PSO, and you patch the ISO with a bunch of like patches that the community's made. And one of them you can play this thing in widescreen. So you're playing a GameCube game perfectly emulated the way it would be on the original hardware, but you also get widescreen support, get enhanced draw distance, like all these things that just wouldn't really be possible on the GameCube directly.
And
I shouldn't say that. You can still do widescreen on the GameCube, but I'm not sure how well that mod would be supported.
it definitely doesn't going to be output at native 1080p, which is what the Wii U does.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
and you can grab a Retrovision component cable for it and plug that into a Tink. I keep mine at 720p and upscale it to 1440p through the Tink, and stuff just looks incredible. I mean, Wii games that look like absolute trash on the Wii itself because of the Wii's really bad video chip look remarkable through this thing. Tatsunoko versus Capcom is a dream. I don't think I have anything interesting with controllers for this system because, like, when I think Wii, I think accessories. But I do have like the Motion Plus adapters for Wii
Yeah.
Sports Resort, which is a banger.
Mine, I actually even like my Wii U is already kind of like pretty scuffed up. I'm not super concerned about that thing cosmetically as long as the innards work. So I have mine set where I just use some foam tape, and I have so I've got like my Wii U stacked, and then the GameCube controller adapter is like taped right on top of that, and then on top of that is the little like stand for the gamepad plugs in, so I get the little tower power going on there.
I like it.
It's using
It's
all
nice.
of the USB ports, so
Yeah, that is one of the problems. I actually have a hub plugged in, powered hub plugged into mine for when I want to use like a USB adapter
right.
because it's full up. Ruktilo says if the Wii U is really easy to mod, I may look into modding mine after replacing its disk drive. Good news. One, it is easy to mod. Two, you don't have to replace your disk drive. This mod, you don't have to use your disk drive whatsoever. I have not used my Wii U's disk drive once to do the mod. You get to do it through like an SD card. So yeah, really, really highly recommend that. If you get out,
I don't even know that you start with the SD card anymore. I think it's you kick the whole process off through the browser on the Wii U.
yes, you can. Although you're going to want an SD card to load software.
Yeah, you'll need the SD card, but it's not something that you would need to start the homebrew process.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, actually, hard or soft modding a Wii U with a broken disk drive is a nice way to save a system from having to have a bunch of repairs and a bunch of work done that seems largely unnecessary. I have heard that there are fan issues with this system, where the inside of them can get very hot. So I've the only recommended mods I've seen is an upgraded Noctua fan, which is pretty brainless for the most part.
I will say that I routinely forget to shut off my system when I'm done playing PSO, because I'm usually half asleep when I'm done playing PSO, and it's been fine. I've left it on for days at a time.
Rutillo says the OS refuses to load at all because the disk drive is out. Well, that just plain sucks. That is awful. Yeah, very bad. Sorry to hear that.
I wonder if you can get one get it like a for parts system or something where the disk drive might be okay.
Probably.
Yeah. I don't know how those. I've never had a reason to actually open one up.
Apparently, they're not easy to work on, but I mean, they're pretty compact, to be frank.
Yep.
for that kind of console. I don't know how much of this technically counts as retro. I guess we're into a newer system generation, but I've got a PS4 Pro sitting around. I don't really have a newer console than this, but these are not being manufactured anymore. So if you ever wanted something that actually displays decent HD, this is what you'll be looking for.
Yeah.
You
I
you got
think.
like what an Xbone and PS5 and everything, but
Yeah, but my Xbox One's not really hooked up, and
mhm.
I've got a PS5. I think the only thing left to talk about here is like cabling, right?
For
Like,
the most part, I've got a box of oddities.
oh, what you got in there?
Well, one thing you'll notice is this lovely cat treats box, which is filled with arcade stick parts. So I do a lot of arcade stick work. Oh, they're falling everywhere. I do a lot of arcade stick work, either repairs or customizations. So I've got a lot of stuff in my arcade stick box. This is the guts of a 360 controller. You can solder onto the pads here to make a wireless arcade stick if you'd like.
I had a buddy who built one of those into a shoebox.
I have also what they call an Axis adapter for the PS3 controller. So you can you don't even need to solder onto the controller itself to get a wireless PS3 signal going. That's what is inside of this guy, which is I think my only functional arcade stick right now. This is a wireless PS3 stick. It's got basically the guts of a 6-axis controller in there, along with a controller
It's such a
chip.
nice looking stick.
Thank you. Let's look at the bad looking ones. Well, that's just a DJ Hero controller. You don't need that. As you can tell, these are, if you're a stick nerd, these are modified Street Fighter SE cases. So I've got another one that has a Neo Geo decal on it that did have the Neo Geo stock layout, but I gutted for parts. As well as this 360 stick, which is technically functional, but is lacking screws and a baseboard and anything that would make it like easy to use whatsoever. And finally, one of my favorite things, I have this arcade stick made out of black walnut, which I had done for me by a friend who did some woodworking one evening. This right now doesn't have any guts in it, but is essentially customized to be a standard Vulix layout with buttons on the back and sides. So this is a bunch of custom woodworking, and I put a laminate top on this so that the top doesn't get scratched.
This has once again got me looking at hitboxes.
That's sicko stuff, man. You can take my Seimetsu out of my cold dead hands.
I cut my teeth in fighting games on a keyboard, so I feel like
You're
it's
just
full circle for me. I just got to come back to where it all began.
I respect that. But yeah, I've got like just random arcade stick parts like falling out of the ceiling here. Here's a Seimetsu joystick if you like that sort of thing. I think that's everything. So maybe it's time to move on to cabling.
Yeah. How do you have all your stuff hooked up? How much of your stuff is hooked up at any one time?
It's all hooked up except for the component stuff. I do not have a good component switch. So one thing I do have though, I have a HDMI switch. They look a lot like this. You can get them for 40 or 50. So all of my HDMI stuff is plugged into a 5-way switch, which is then converted to component, and that signal is fed through the RetroTink. I need to add a component switch to this setup, and that will make the whole thing fully automated, and basically all the systems will be plugged in at once.
Nice.
You've got more of a complete setup, though.
I've gone full mad scientist. It started out with me wanting to empty out my closet and get all my systems hooked up. So I did the typical retro YouTuber Kallax IKEA shelf cube shelf thing. The nice thing about my setup, and this you're just gonna see like trashed room right now, but so if that's my closet over there, right on the other side of that wall is where I have my shelves. Where I have my shelves with all my consoles on them, and I was able to just cut holes in the wall behind each cube and run cables through. So it's like it's a 4x4 So I got 16 spots for consoles, and they all run into my closet, which serves as kind of the wiring hub. So I wanted to empty out my closet, then I just turned it into a wiring closet. It wasn't exactly what I was trying to do, but it works.
Do you have a GS comp for switching?
Yes, all of my component systems that have component video out go into it's a GS comp switch, which is 8 in and 2 mirrored outputs. One of those outputs runs over to this CRT that you see behind me. So any of those consoles out there that I have like a wireless controller for, I can come in here, I can play it on the CRT. I think that's when we played Xbox games. I didn't have a wireless controller, so I had to run it through the closet, which is why I had to sit way back there that night. But yeah, for any wireless stuff, I can play it in here. Get that that CRT look. But the other component output from that switch goes into the RetroTink, which is going to upscale it to 1080. And it can upscale to 1440. I don't think I have it set to do that right now. But then that upscaler is going to output HDMI, and that goes into another switch that I have, an HDMI switch, which also has 2 mirrored outputs. So one of those HDMI outputs goes to my TV, which is out in the room where all the consoles are. So that's how I would get the signal out there. So if I want to play anything sitting out on the couch. And the other one goes over to my capture card over here. So anytime we play something that you see here, that's how I have it going to the CRT, and then also to my capture card. It's going through a few devices to get there. The Mister in the arcade cabinet, I wanted to get that into that video chain so that I could play Mister stuff from the couch as well. It didn't always have to be in front of the arcade cabinet. Mister is kind of finicky about the length of HDMI cable you use. So the way I got around that was by using a fiber optic HDMI cable, so that the length just didn't matter anymore. And that runs over into the HDMI switch. It already does its own analog out, so I don't need to worry about getting it to the CRT. It's already headed there. I'm trying to think of what other fuckery I've had to do. The PS5 is an ugly beast, and I never want to have to look at it. So that's in the closet, and I've got again one of those long fiber optic HDMI cables running out to the TV out there.
The PS5 is in a shame closet?
It is. It absolutely is. It's an ugly console. It looks like trash. I don't understand why they would do that. Like, why they were like, you know what, the PS4 was a nice design, but what if the next one had a vulva?
Is that what's going on with the PS5?
It kind of is.
That's wild, my man. It's got to. I always thought it just kind of looked like a yacht from Star Trek or something, just like a vaguely futuristic boat. But I think now I'm thinking about it, it's a little saucy.
Yeah, it is. It's the console. You know, like I put that one away when the parents come over.
That's right. It's so round that it can't even sit flat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a spicy console. That's. I don't know why you. I don't know why you bought one, but you were telling me that like there's nice shit on there already.
Yeah, there's nice stuff. I bought one, for the because I bought one because I got a nice OLED.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That
and,
makes sense.
You know, I wanted something that could fully take advantage of it. There's games on there like I play Elden Ring using that one. I play the new Gran Turismo on there. It looks really nice.
Yeah, I bet that looks wonderful.
Yeah. So there's good stuff, and honestly, like a lot of PS4 games got really nice upgrades, both visually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a lot of frame rate boosts and like resolution upgrades. Like Sekiro looks nicer on PS5.
Shit, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So overall, would you say you're happy with the purchase?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't hate it at all. I mean, I played the Dark Souls remake for PS5, and that was definitely the most visually striking, like from like a fidelity standpoint, uh, game that I've ever played. Not just on console. Like it.
You were. Well, that's crazy.
There's probably scenes in Elden Ring now that look better than that, but like at the time there was like one hallway. I think I tweeted out a screenshot of it because it was like it looked like a painting. It was really good.
You were big up being Ratchet and Clank as well, yeah.
Yeah. Ratchet and Clank was real nice. Also, that one from a technical standpoint, it's mostly the load times. They do some things with like a portal that'll take you to a completely different area, that it's loaded really quickly, so you can just like go through it without any kind of load times or anything. It's it seems like a technical thing about the system, but really it's like they use it to enhance the narrative and the gameplay in a really cool way.
That's awesome.
And
that's awesome.
The only other thing I didn't mention was my Windows XP gaming PC.
Oh yeah, you got that bad boy.
Yeah, I got a hold of a Trinitron CRT, like PC CRT, a 21-inch, and that weighs like 60 pounds. I have to have I built a separate support into my desk so that it didn't warp the wood. And then I'm running a Precision. It's like a Dell Precision Tower. Yeah, Precision 490 that has dual sockets in it. Can take an obnoxious amount of memory, but like if I'm using it for gaming, it doesn't make any sense to put it in there because games aren't going to support it anyway.
Yeah.
The only thing that's like kind of interesting about the way that that's set up cabling wise is that these headphones, and I think you have the same ones now, the Arctis 9, that has this little dongle, this little 2.4 gigahertz dongle, but it's also got a game in, so it's getting its audio over USB, and so that's what's feeding my PC audio that I'm using right now. But it's got this game in so that I can also pump in the audio from my Windows XP computer and get that through the same headphones without having to switch sources or anything.
That's sick.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, I do not have a retro PC set up, although I'm sure eventually I'll get there. I mean, I don't know. I'm very jealous of that monitor, though. It looks really nice.
Yeah, I think I'm probably like...
Yeah, since we're signing off.
Yeah.
Mamunjia, yeah, you are late, unfortunately. We're just finishing up here. Kind of went through everything right quick. Yeah. Right quick. It was 2 hours and change.
I'll just take it off completely.
Oh, there we go. Here we go.
There you go.
Look at that bad boy.
I did a custom paint job on it, took the shell off. This design was kind of inspired from the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Switch Pro controller.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. So I think that's everything. Are we planning to sign off?
Oh my god, I hope so.
Okay. Well, then let's do it formally. Thank you for coming out tonight, everybody, and thank you for saying we had a great stream, Quetzalcoatl. We appreciate it. Mike and I have been talking about doing a handful of bonus streams because we're close to affiliate status, whatever the fuck that means. So maybe we'll surprise you every once in a while by jumping on a non-Tuesday. But other than that, we'll see you next week.
Goodbye. I love you.
Peace. Mwah.